This video is about buying, installing, and using Nordfab ductwork in my small basement shop. There are timestamps if you want to get somewhere faster, so let's get into it. If you've looked into ductwork at all online, you've likely come across Bill Pence or Matthias Wandel's websites, which have heaps of information and differing opinions on dust collection. I'll leave a link to those below if you wanted to do more research. The key takeaways for me were to keep the ductwork as large as possible. And for example, the inlet on my dust collector is 6 inches. So I aim to keep as much of this layout at 6 inches where possible, and to limit the amount of flex hose by getting these smooth walled pipes as close to the tools as possible. Now you might see this very long piece of flex hose, but that is for convenience. I think the biggest issue with Nordfab is the price. So how much is it? Well, Nordfab North America has a convenient product list online, so you can look up what each component costs and get a pretty good idea of what you might need for your shop. You can see a 6-foot 6-inch pipe is $59.30, a 4-inch blast gate is $53.30, etc. My setup is all their standard gauge, which is 22, galvanized. Don't forget to include the clamps, the wall or ceiling hangers if you need them, and there are definitely cheaper alternatives, and the flex hose adapters. There are a pile of Nordfab dealers across North America, and based on my experience, it definitely pays to shop around. The first dealer I phoned in my area was not very customer friendly. They took over a month to get me a quote. I had to phone them multiple times to get that quote, and when it did arrive, it included a 25% material surcharge, which was prior to shipping, transport, and brokerage fees. I'd note that shipping from Nordfab in North Carolina to my location in Canada added approximately 20% to the total at the time of this filming. So while I was being frustrated by the first contact, I phoned a second, and what a difference. I sent them the same layout sketches and pictures of my shop, and they were at my door the following day, measuring, taking additional photos to make sure I got exactly what I needed. The next day, I had the quote, which matched the prices perfectly that I'd seen in the Nordfab catalog. Now shipping was of course still extra, but they actually shopped around for me and got me a great rate. Absolutely fantastic customer service. I'll leave a link to them in the description as well. As for the delivery, if I recall, it took about 6 weeks to get here. The first thing I wanted to say about the installation is that it is dead simple. If you've got concerns about making it work for your space, rejigging it or making adjustments, having to slice the pipe to get it to fit perfectly, let me allay your fears. It's called Quick Fit for a reason. You are paying a premium for its ease of use and its adjustability. I mean, they've even trademarked the phrase the world's fastest ducting, and it certainly seemed that way to me. Nordfab offers a handy PDF of tips on their website, which I'll link below as well. But in the important safety information section, you'll see that number 1 is work gloves, because sheet metal can be sharp and burrs are possible. Throughout this video, you'll note that I'm barely wearing gloves, if at all, during the assembly. Probably 95% of the components that I bought were completely smooth and free of burrs or sharp metal edges, but there were a couple places that could have done some damage, so just be aware of that if you're installing yours. Here you can see an example of a pretty sharp section on this pipe, and here's a burr that's standing straight up and ready to poke you.
Don't poke the bear.
They recommend you lay out and connect as much of your runs as possible on the floor before lifting them up to the ceiling. You'll also want to pre-stretch your clamps on the rolled edges to make connecting 2 pieces of pipe together much easier, which you'll see me doing as I'm going here. For my installation, I focused on installing the portions that were attached to the walls or the ceiling first, knowing that any portion that required an adjustable quick fit sleeve would give me plenty of wiggle room, and also realizing that I could always move my dust collector if I needed more space, which may or may not be an option for you. Here I'll show you how the quick fit sleeve works. You first measure the distance you want to span, and then you cut your pipe 4 inches shorter than what you just measured. I'm using a spring-loaded punch to mark the pipe. Then I'm drilling a pilot hole with a stepless bit that's just big enough to fit a jigsaw blade. Then clean up the end with a file to get rid of any burrs and slip the sleeve over top. Ensure that it's on the downstream side of the cut piece when you install it. Once it's in place, you can easily slide the assembly over to the correct length and then move the O-ring up against the rolled edge and clamp it together. With respect to some issues I had, if you've got a Harvey G700 dust collector, I'd note that the Nordfab 6-inch machine adapter needs to be flared, as it's the exact same size as the inlet on the dust collector. So Nordfab will flare that for you. You just have to specify by how much. And the ideal diameter is actually the size of the adjustable nipple, which is the quick fit sleeve that fits over the pipe. Now, when I realized this, I phoned all the muffler shops in my area to see if they could use a pipe expander to flare this out for me, but none of them were equipped to do 6-inch tubing. So in the end, I ended up using one of the adjustable nipples because it was a perfect fit, and I used a slice of the broad rubber band that came with my dust collector to provide an airtight seal. The only other issue I had was with one of the blast gates. You can see that this is the caulk job on it. It's quite a hard caulking. I'm not sure what it is, but on the back side, this one clearly snuck through the inspection process. I phoned my dealer and asked what the caulking was so that I could fix it. And they said, don't worry about it. They called Nordfab and they sent me a brand new one, free of charge. I'll just run you through my layout so you can see what the individual components look like. I don't expect your needs to be the same as mine, but maybe some parts of this will, and hopefully you can get something out of it. Coming off the dust collector, I'm using two 30-degree elbows and an adjustable nipple. The adjustable nipple is supposed to slide over a section of cut 6-foot pipe, but the length was perfect here, so I left it as is. I'm not sure what Nordfab would say about that, but these rolled edges, I think are the same. Next, I've got to run off here a 4-inch standard branch, a blast gate, and a 45-degree elbow, which then has a hose adapter attached to that. Connected to the flex hose is a Dust Right Quick Connect from Rockler. I'd note that these are all attached with bridge clamps. You can see here what the bridge clamp looks like. You have to get these in a certain direction. If you're holding your flex hose and the pipe is spiraling clockwise when it's facing away from you, you need a right-handed clamp. Otherwise, you need a lefty. This Rockler hose is requires a right-handed clamp, but all the other hose in my shop needed a lefty. So keep that in mind. The main run then travels up the wall at a 45-degree angle, bends at 45 degrees, then 90 degrees to travel behind this bulkhead before bending down again at 90 degrees. Then there's another 4-inch standard branch which goes through a blast gate with another flex hose adapter on that. This leads to the table saw's overarm collection unit. This is a Craftex brand from Busy Bee Tools in Canada. I believe the comparable US model is made by or called Excalibur. There's a bit of slack in this line to allow the arm to be swung away if needed. Continuing down, there's another 4-inch standard branch and a blast gate servicing the bandsaw with a short section of flex hose. The two outlets from this 14BX bandsaw are connected with dry fit 4-inch PVC pipe. This setup is similar to the one used by Ben at the Snicker Show. If you put the ends of these rubber couplings in a bowl of hot water, they will easily stretch over the ends of these pipes. After the bandsaw, there's a 6-inch blast gate followed by another 90-degree bend, a 30-degree bend, a length of pipe, and then a reducer with a very short section of flex hose right at the machine's connection. So the first thing I'm going to test out is the airflow at the table saw. So right now I've got the 4-inch port open that leads to the 3-inch outlet on here, and I've got a 6-inch which reduces to a 4-inch below the table. So on my anemometer, I'm just going to put in 3-inch in terms of area squared, and that's 0.077 feet squared to measure the CFM at the source. Excuse me, losing my voice. I'll just turn on the dust collector, and we'll see what we get for CFM here. about 480. And that is in addition to what is coming out the bottom. So this is going to be a 4-inch diameter duct. So I'm just going to change the readings on here to 0.1257, which is the equivalent, or 0.125, I guess. It should be 0.126. Let me just change that. And that's 0.126 feet squared is 4 inches circular diameter. Just turn on the unit again, and I've still got the port up top open. And let's see what we get here. So about 650 there. So combined, we've got over 800 CFM. All right, now we're going to check the 4-inch flex hose, which services a router table, a spindle sander, and a planer. Now my planer is the DeWalt Lunchbox Planer 735, which has its own fan to eject the chips. So the CFM requirements there aren't very high. The spindle sander and router table, given that this is a 4-inch branch, I need about 350 CFM. So let's see what we've got. I've got the anemometer set at 0.126 for the equivalent for 4 inches diameter. And let's turn this on and see what we get. So we're looking for 350 plus. Now at full power. 700. Right on. I think the wide belt sanders are probably the highest CFM tools I might actually connect to this. And I think I'm going to be set. All right, we might as well test everything. Now, I'm not really going to be a big fan of taking all this apart, but let's see what comes out of here. I'm still set at 0.126 for 4 inches. And again, this is quick connect, so take my cotter pin off, and this is easy. Let's turn on the dust collector, see what we get. So what you can see there is the smooth walled pipe, which is going up the wall, across the ceiling, down, is still sucking so much more than the flex hose, which is right next to the dust collector. So there's a good example of how the smooth walled pipe makes a big difference. And I think that's more than enough capacity to suck the dust out of this Laguna. So in conclusion, why buy Nordfab? Quality and convenience. It's very easy to set up, very easy to change. If you get new tools, you can tear it down if you've got a blockage. You can reassemble it if you move, and I expect it to last my lifetime. I also think that if I had to sell it, it would hold its value because it's going to be in great condition, even decades from now. I couldn't find any components available on Craigslist in my area, so that's a complete guess on my part that this has resale value. But I also lean to the buy once, cry once philosophy when it comes to my tools, and I could afford it. My shop is in the basement of my house. It's adjacent to an office and a furnace room, so I'd like to take some further steps to eliminate more of the small particles that will be in the air. So up next, you'll see a couple of air cleaner projects and some air testing. Science! I hope to see you then.